Good evening and salutations, my Days of Our Lives fans. You know what? Let's talk about Allie and Chanel for a minute because I'm going to be honest, towards the end of this episode, I actually felt bad for Chanel. I really did. The thing is, they sat there, they talked about the kiss, and Allie even admitted that she wanted it to happen. She was thinking about her. And Chanel was like, listen, why don't you sit there and tell Trip, since y'all aren't official yet, why don't you just sit there and say you need some space to sit there and think about it, Because Allie is confused, she's never had feelings for a woman. She really needs to sit there and just kind of sit down with this information and process it and not move too forward with either one of them, And just when, this nigga talking about Trip or whatever, Trip shows up. So he shows up, and Chanel's like, listen, I'm just practically give you your space, talk it out with him, because Chanel was under the impression that Allie was going to sit there and kind of just break things off with Trip and see where it went, especially the way that Allie was sitting there talking, to Chanel. Making her, leading her to believe that, hey, listen, we're going to give this thing a shot and see what happens. So Chanel takes a walk outside and, Allie fills in Trip on the whole Paulina thing and no job thing and everything else. And then Allie told Trip about the kiss. Now, I'm going to be honest, at this point, I think everyone knows how I feel about Allie. She's not the worst character in the world, but there's just a lot of times where she just kind of either she vexes me or just like, I don't know. But I gotta sit there and give her credit. She didn't sit there and, like she handled it. She sat down there and she told him, hey, listen, I kissed her. I don't know where these feelings are, where they're going or anything like that, but I want to be honest with you. But then she's like, she wants to be with Trip. And Trip, at first Trip, I'm not gonna lie, Trip handled it a whole lot better than anybody else would have. Okay? Cause Trip was like, listen, we just started dating. If you want to sit there and be with her, I understand. Do what you gotta do. No hard feelings. And I'm gonna be honest, he handled it a hell of a lot better than I would have handled it. And I would have been upset. I wouldn't have been upset with the fact that she kissed a girl. I would have been upset with the fact that I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what's going on now? Granted, I probably just would have just took it in a more negative way and be like, alright, we can kick rocks. I'm good. Bye. Because I don't got time to sit there and be playing games like that. But, he was like, yo, listen, if you want to be with her, you can be with her. And I was like, Allie said she went to be with Trip. And Trip was like, are you sure? Now, whenever people sit there and say that, that's their out. So if you want to take this out before things get more crazy, more serious or whatever, do it now. Because when we start going, and then you start flip-flopping back and forth afterwards, like Jake, I'm going to be like, bro, or girl, what are you doing? But she said she wanted to be with him. And she said she wanted to be with him, and then they start kissing, and then she's like, I want to be with you. Like, I want to, have sex with you. I'm sitting there thinking, Allie, you do realize that she just went for a walk, okay? She didn't go to, like, work or, spend, like, a couple hours with her mom or her family or anything like that. She just went for a walk. And you thought this was the perfect time to start playing mattress tag with Trip. Are you kidding? Because at this point, I'm like, I just felt like she could have handled it. I mean, granted, for story purposes, drama and everything like that, it works. But I felt like, in reality, she probably could have handled this a whole lot better. And I would have been like, starting with the fact that she didn't kiss him, she didn't actually decide to have sex with him or anything like that. She sat down with Chanel, was like, listen, I understand that we kissed. The problem, even with that at that point, is that she'd been playing to Chanel and to some people, it's going to look like she's been playing games with her. Okay, the first time they kissed, she was off guard. Alright, fine. But then all those other times, when they're like holding hands, they're looking at each other, there was one point they were about to kiss, and the second time, she even initiated the kiss. And now, she already knows that Chanel has feelings for her. And so what does she decide to do? Oh, I'm just going to sit there and just have sex with this man. I'm just going to have sex with the other person, and, yeah, I know, I said I was going to talk to him, but, we talked, and, like, it just comes across like you're just playing games. You're playing with her emotions. And for somebody who doesn't even like this character, okay, I'm just like, it's just kind of a poor, pissed way of how she went about it with Chanel. And again, I don't like her, but no one deserves to be having their feelings played with like that. And that's what she did. And granted, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional. She was honest. Okay, it wasn't like they were together and then she cheated on Chanel with Trip or anything like that. But the way she went about it, it was foul. On top of the fact that Chanel wasn't there talking to Paulina, and Paulina was like, one second. Paulina was like, listen, you can have your own bakery in my square, in this whole, renovation thing. And Chanel turned it down. And she turned it down largely for the fact that it was supposed to be her and Allie. And she was like, how's Allie going to sit there and feel about her, about her working under you, knowing what you did to her town, knowing what you did to her family. I'm not with that. I'm not going to sit there and betray her like that. Like, I'm out. So now she even turned down a job offer from her mother to actually have her own bakery for Allie, who's been, at this point, I'm going to be honest, kind of playing games with her emotions. And when she comes back upstairs, she overhears the fact that, Allie's like, yeah, I want to be with you. Like, she wants to be with Trill. So now she's all hurt. And on top of that, now the job that she might have had, she turned it down to be with her. And for what? To have this girl sit there and play around with her heart just for her to sit there and pretty much kick her to the curb? Foul stuff. Now Abe comes over to John and Marlena's house, and they're sitting there trying to cheer him up or whatever. Now, granted, when he walked in, he literally had like egg on his jacket and stuff. And after they sit there and start talking, they're like, yo, it's bad. The people that voted for me, they don't like me, they don't trust me. Laws and stuff like that, as far as the lawyers are concerned, like, I'm in the red. Like, I'm not, like, I can't do anything. And, even John, even though John and Marlena's like, it's not your fault, you didn't know. The minute that, Abe was like, I should have vetted it more. This is on me. The buck stops with me. The buck stops with me. And I'm like, it's sad, but it's true. This whole thing happened because of him. Because he didn't sit there and really try to vet what she was sitting there doing. He just took her for her word because they're somewhat family and, he wanted to be with her. So, this whole thing, no matter how you look at it, he played or not or whatever, it's still on him. So there's really nothing he can do, and he spends most of the time since they're being with John and Marlena, he leaves like, yo, I'm sorry for being bad company. I understand you guys tried, I appreciate that, but, it is what it is. So, I mean, there's really nothing he can do. He just has to sit there and just take it. All of it. All the smoke from all the people that voted for him, all, like, the officials, whatever, that worked for him, he has to take it all. All of it. And I know Kay's probably going to sit there and look at that and be like, see, I didn't like her from the start. I didn't like her from the start with all that judgmental stuff and, talking about race, this, that, and third. Like, I like her from the start. So, let's talk about Paulina and, Lonnie. The minute that Paulina knocked on the door and Lonnie opened it up, well, after she, heard her, she opened it up. Slammed it right in the damn face. I'm like, that would have been your chance to just leave. But she stayed and she took some more because when Lonnie opened the door, Lonnie practically was like, I want nothing to do with you. You pretty much betrayed everyone. My dad, everyone. And of course, Paulina is just delusional as hell talking about, oh, we can find a way to work past this, you can forgive me, yada, yada, yada. This is after Lonnie was like, I tore up the check because pretty much the only thing you was trying to do was bribe us. Because you knew that once this went down, this was your way of trying to cushion the blow. But at this point, it's one of those things where it's like, she pretty much was like, I want nothing to do with you. There was no amount of, I apologize, I didn't know, it was too late, The minute that, Lonnie was like, okay, well, you didn't know at one point, but you knew afterwards, you didn't tell us or anything. You just did what you want to do because of money. And she pretty much was like, yo, I want no parts of you. You're done, I'm cutting you out of my life. And Paulina walked away. And then when Eli came in, Lonnie was like, I'll talk to my mom. She said I should forgive her, but at this point, I don't know how. Now, Eli was sitting there talking to Julie, and Julie was like, yo, I know who killed Schneider. It was Xander and Gwen. And at first, Eli kind of takes a lot of stuff that she says with a grain of salt. Even as far as Nick saying, oh, well, he didn't die there, he died in the, in the water. And Gwen was like the last time that they talked was in the hospital. But Julie was like, no, because he was literally sitting in my couch, he was dead, or, he thought that, he was drunk. She thought that he was drunk. The point is, she gave the information to, Eli, which, at the very least, contradicts the stuff that Gwen was sitting there saying. So, he's going to sit there and check it out. I mean, hell, he even went to the house, and they weren't there. So, he's going to sit there and check it out, and they're going to have some explaining to do. Because at this point, it's pretty much Julie's word versus them. Problem is, at this point, where are they going to go? I mean, Julie is not going to want them to sit there and stay in the house. And Jack is going to be sitting there fighting with Julie. And they're going to be sitting there going back and forth. So this whole thing is just a giant mess. But, yeah. What else we got? Now, this was a scene that I felt like took a little bit too long. But I guess they wanted to do it to sit there and stretch out the time. So once Justin says no, and Bonnie's like, she's angry, she's hurt. Justin's like, well, here's the thing. But of course, he doesn't get the chance to say anything because Bonnie she just doesn't know when to shut up. And she just keeps going and going and going. And she goes right on out the restaurant. And of course, she goes back to the house and Justin has to sit there and track her down. And finally, I guess she must have lost breath or something like that because she's all like, oh, well, I'm leaving. I'm just getting this stuff. Da, 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 da. Finally, Justin gets down on one knee, and Justin's like, listen, I want to sit there and ask you to marry me. I'm just old school like that. I'm like, alright, bro. I felt like this whole thing was just whatever. Like, dude, it's 2021. This whole thing could have just been avoided if you would have been saying yes, and then telling your reasons why you want to marry her and you accept her proposal. But no, we had to sit there and just drag this from one scene all the way to the next. And finally, he proposed to her. She said yes. And then they had sex. They had sex. Bonnie tells Justin about, I'm about to call him that. Tells him about, her maiden of honor, which is Kayla, and, I mean, it was a nice scene if you like that romance stuff or whatever. For me, I was just like, alright, this would have been a whole lot more faster if this wouldn't have just, I felt like it just dragged on too much. But I guess it had to be a big enough build-up, so, okay, sure. It's crazy because they literally, not that long ago, just finished solving another murder mystery, which was Charlie. And now we're doing this all over again. You know, at this point, I mean, Julie, you know, at least Julie actually did the right thing. Like, she told Eli, and Eli's being, you know, you gotta sit there and kind of take everything what she says as a grain of salt, because Julie she tends to over-exaggerate a lot. And two, you know, he doesn't have, like, she has a lot of things, you know, there's not a lot of proof. So, but at the very least, it can sit there and open up an investigation. Which I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, bro, I was like, Gwen, listen, if you just would have let Xander call the cops and explain that you didn't have anything to do with his death, and that he was sitting there blackmailing you, whatever she would have got would have been a lot lighter than what she's gonna get right now. You know, she was all like, oh, I just dodged the last murder, and, you know, I can't sit there and go through another one, because this time they're going to sit there and find me guilty. Of what? They don't have any evidence. On top of that, Schneider is at Jack's house. It's not like she went to go see him at his office, and then this happened, and then, you know, whatever. Like, she is, like, he went to go see her, you know? So, I feel like in a lot of ways, if she just would have explained that, she wouldn't have been having all the problems that she has. But now, the cover-up went bad, and now you pretty much have an eyewitness that saw, you know, the victim before his death. So, I don't know. I feel like that's about it. I think, like I said, the more interesting part about this episode was the Allie, Chanel, and Trip stuff, because just how it went down, just a very messy and overly complicated way because of Allie. I mean, I can't fully blame. I feel like she's at the very least, even if I can't fully blame her, she's the majority of why this this whole thing was just such a mess. If she would just took time just to kind of just process this whole thing, neither one of them would have been too upset about it. But I'm like, you want to sit there and have sex with her? I'm like, you want to have sex with him? And she just practically just, I don't know, walked the block a couple of times? Like, anyway, with that being said, I think that's pretty much about it. If I miss anything, please write it down in the comment section below, because I have a feeling like I totally missed something like usual. But with that being said, I'm going to go. I want to thank everyone for watching. Be safe. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I will see you in the next video.